Guys, how you doing? I'm very honored to be able to interview with you guys and submit a case study on some of the customers' data that you guys sent over to kind of model, scope out some of my Power BI skills in doing DAX and data modeling. So what turned me on about P3 Adaptive is some of the things that you guys are doing in preparing customers for the AI space, especially integrating with Microsoft Azure, Fabric, and Power BI. So I'm very motivated to get started into preparing some type of the results of this case study and how to reply to this role. So what I did was I prepared in the mind of a consultant a document to kind of introduce to the possible quote unquote customer um, that that's involved in the industry of bicycle sales, manufacturing, accessories, and merchandise. So looking at this document, I'm going to email it over and want to kind of prepare a styling about an execution summary to submit to this customer to kind of get them on boarded, to get them motivated about the life cycles of integrating this technology to handle some of their CRM and sales and for accessories and merchandise or whatnot. So this execution summary, pretty much your, I don't want to say cookie cutter, but it's kind of a nice model to go through to look at the different phases of build, development, and analysis, looking at the different price models and what they're getting in terms of transitioning and from a support level agreement perspective. Um, Also, I did some homework on the case study. I say, what does a bicycle manufacturing industry look like? What are some of the industry challenges and some of the value added modeling that we can do for incorporating the Microsoft Azure and cloud space to satisfy these customers. So I put together this document to kind of integrate some strategies and also included this matrix of maturity when they go through those different support level agreements adopting this technology. And just a simple conclusion here. So just wanted to kind of show the value of coming in with the mind of a consultant to produce a solution. Again, my name is Alan Newbold. I'm an electrical engineer and computer engineer. Been doing Microsoft Cloud technologies for about 12, 13 years now. So seen a lot and done a lot. So I'm glad to be humbled in this space to be able to mentor, to be able to create and design solutions. Let's go into the case study here. First thing it did, I said, who is P3 Adaptive? How can we incorporate the Microsoft Fabric lifecycle to kind of solve this solution? Because some of the data models you guys sent over had well over 60,000 rows. So I said, um, instead of wiring things up linearly directly into a Power BI direct query method, let's take it through a simple Fabric lifecycle. So what I did was created this notebook where I ran an ETL directly against the CSVs to kind of do some analysis here. So went through different 4 different steps for importing and shaping the data. Also monitoring some metrics on the data here, and so we can get some plots going with matplotlib to kind of see what's going on here. And this is a good concept when you're dealing with medallion architectures, especially dealing with the bronze layer coming directly from the business data from the sales CRM of the bike company. You want to be able to kind of create some monitoring strategy for the ETL coming into the bronze layer to kind of surface some transparency on what's going on. So what I did was create this Lakehouse and ran something called the data flow gen 2, right? Directly from the Excel imports to populate this Lakehouse here. So what I did was in the Lakehouse, I said, okay, we got these 4 tables, which were a linear ETL from the data flow gen 2. Let me go ahead and create some views here. I said, since we have to reproduce that report for the different percentages before and after the 90 days aging of customer retention, I said, let me just create some views here. So what I did was I took it through a life cycle for um, when was the customer's first order, right? Of course, with the Fabric trial capacity, things get a little slow here. So basically here, when I did the query, I said, come on, Fabric. Just give me the order date, right? The minimum date, right? From the order date and the first order date. And looking at, I said, okay, let's talk about getting it from the bronze Lakehouse from the sales data that was imported. Same thing for the first order date, right? I got the orders after the first order date, right? And the same thing here, right? But the concept was that to get to a resulting report where we can get the resulting percentages for before and after the first order date, and how many customers during the month of the fiscal years. And I assumed from the data that you guys were looking at, let's look at it right quick, um, that in this column here, that if it's July 1, September 1, I just seen the month periods repeated over these different numbers. So I assumed that this was fiscal year 2001, fiscal year 2002, fiscal year 2003, fiscal year 2004. So I modeled the data as such. I've also create these different semantic models for the different Lakehouse and the views and the delta tables and the views to surface some analytics here. So how does this look in Power BI? Let's open up Power BI. Let's see what I've been working on in Power BI. Okay. Generating these queries is kind of straightforward, and you have to have the orchestration mentality to kind of create these views here. Of course, I can go into the queries, but I guess the case study here is not for SQL queries, but it is adding value when you're able to create SQL queries against the sales data to kind of orchestrate through the data model to get to the resulting report. And what I did was in Power BI was bring those views in, right? And generate this calculated table based on DAX. So in the DAX, let's go into DAX here. Come on, Power Query. Show the function table. Okay, there it goes. So in the function table, here's this DAX, right, where we select the columns from the final view, right, before and after 90 days. And of course, in the analytics workspace, you know, with the Delta Lakehouse, you get an analytics endpoint. So from there, I created views of those tables, and there was 3 views I used to generate this final view, which is customers turned before and after 90 days. So creating 3 views before this view to orchestrate the data to prepare for the DAX. That was the goal, because looking at all that massive data to create the cumbersome DAX expressions to create that aggregations of the percentages, that is, I think that exceeds the scope of the concept of data access expressions, right? Because when you go beyond the developers or consumers' perspective of the data, how can they express themselves naturally? So when we talk about data access expressions, how do we orchestrate data down into a perspective of a data steward and a data consumer? And that's the benefit, that's the empowerment of DAX expressions. Instead of just using it as a programming language to just program directly against the source, no, first appreciate the orchestration of data source going through the bronze data tier of a medallion architecture from the data source, modeling the data, looking at some Python perspectives with matplotlib and some analysis, then modeling the data in the SQL analytics endpoint, preparing it for the silver layer, right? And the work effort in this case study cleanly prepares the data for the silver layer, and so that a business user that's a power user can really get in and be empowered by DAX and whatnot. So with this DAX query, we're able to kind of reproduce that this data structure here in the dashboard. And I believe the percentages is kind of have 2 decimal places, degrees of freedom. So I think in the report it showed like 94.3. I got it to 95.1, you know, but it's within reasonable range for the calculations. And I think this is where things gets back delivered to you guys. So I really appreciate doing this. It took me about 2 days to do it. Setting up the Lakehouse and Fabric, setting up the Python notebook, bringing in the libraries with pandas and matplotlib to do the Python code, the ETL, then setting up the queries in the Lakehouse. Having the orchestration mentality, piecing things up as if you're pseudocoding to empower DAX at the end of the day for the data steward and the data consumer, so you don't have all this cumbersome DAX code looking at those raw tables. I think that was the lessons learned here. Thank you so much.